Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic. Today is the last episode for the original series.
Yes!
In case this is the first Critic episode for you, welcome. Here is a brief explanation of how this is done. Each episode is treated like a school project starting with 100 points. Then 1 point taken away for each error, big or small error, still just 1 point. Like plot holes, continuity errors, starting mismatches, or Spock laughing. Also, there are a few things not brought up, like artificial gravity, the transporter, or why everyone speaks English all over the galaxy. You will see mostly still photos and very short video clips to prevent copyright claims because those really suck. And you won't see me in the corner like this very much because I get really tongue-tied when I'm talking into a camera. My commentary may not match the actual plot line, and if you feel like leaving a comment, please keep it clean. Most important of all, click that like button, the share button, and that subscribe button. And now let's begin. This episode is Turnabout Intruder, which was preempted due to Eisenhower's death, so aired 3 months after the official end of Star Trek. Before we go any further, one error in this episode was corrected already by Star Trek itself with portraying female captains, so that error will be thrown out, and the show will be taken from a slightly different angle. The first point is lost for the captain and first officer beaming down together, and another point for not bringing down a science or security team since they are responding to a distress call. Dr. Coleman and Janice Lester are the only two in this research team to survive a radiation surge, which means another point lost for not beaming down in radiation suits. Spock is picking up faint life signs. Are they real or just a ruse to get them out of the room? These two were old flames for a year, but it sounds like it didn't go that great. She says it was at Starfleet. Was that Starfleet headquarters or Starfleet Academy? They really don't say. This is Kirk politely saying she was free to go do scientific research without him. Here comes the comment that women can't be starship captains. In reality, maybe she just wasn't cut out for the job and is now playing the victim. Kirk is politely staying quiet because they didn't have that great of a relationship, and he knows her well enough and might not think she is qualified to be a captain either. Does this mean he was mean to her because she was a woman or wanted to be a captain, or they really just had a crappy relationship? Kirk is now politely saying it was a good thing they split. We also don't know when she left Starfleet to be a scientist, and if they both became captains, they would never be on the same ship. But Kirk is thinking, no, you were always kind of a nut job. That's why you're not in Starfleet anymore, and a scientist way out in the middle of nowhere. And there she goes. Look closely, his eyes are open, and now they're closed. And here comes the famous scene. Is Dr. Lester trying to get even with Kirk? Does she want to be a man? Or is she really that obsessed with being a starship captain? I'm going with the obsession answer, and I'm pretty sure she didn't think this through the whole way. This action is definitely proof she was never cut out to be a starship captain. I'm pretty sure Lester and Coleman have used this machine enough times to know it isn't permanent unless the other person dies. When William Shatner was told to act like a furious woman who's a total drama queen, the acting coach said, "Just be yourself." Based on these comments, Dr. Lester really hates being a woman. Now you know the indignity of being a woman. Believe me, it's better to be dead than to live alone in the body of a woman. Lester thinks Coleman is Dr. McCoy. That's not good. I bet the rest of the science team was already dead. Dr. Coleman believes it was Celebium, but he also disagrees with himself. He's really nervous right now, isn't he? Coleman says Dr. Lester is near death. Lester in Kirk's body says it was the shock of her staff. Bones doesn't know, and Coleman doesn't know either. Oh look, there's an emergency medical team waiting on the ship that didn't beam down to help the science team that just died of radiation poisoning. Lester tells Spock, let's get out of here. Lester makes McCoy think Kirk is guilty of something, saying he walked out on her when it became serious. In reality, Kirk walked when he discovered she was a nut job. When Sandra Smith got the part to play Kirk, she said, "Oh, this will be easy. Just be an overacting drama queen all day." If you want to get technical, all three of them have had sex with each other in one way or another. Which makes you wonder what just began. Is this a script error, or is Dr. Lester really playing the role good? Lester's goal is now to keep Kirk in her body unconscious until they are off the ship. Coleman calls Lester out even though she really did try. Is this the first time on TV where one man accuses another man of loving another man? Of course, Lester is a man's mind trapped in a woman's body, so she identifies as a man. And Kirk's body is a man with a woman's mind who stole a man's body and identifies as a woman who stole a man's body and...
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed. I suggest you don't worry about this sort of thing and just enjoy yourself. That goes for you all, too. Yes.
Now they argue over who is a murderer and who is going to kill Kirk. Lester sent her entire staff to be exposed to the radiation leak. She killed them all just to send a distress signal, luring the Enterprise to the disaster where she could kidnap Kirk's body and take over the Enterprise.
Everybody got that?
Dr. McCoy's onto something because Lester doesn't show any sign of radiation poisoning. She better be careful in what she says because they didn't go off and died. McCoy is suspicious of that comment, especially since she's acting like it was a phaser blast, which Kirk's body got hit with. Does Dr. Coleman think he's Santa Claus, or is that a sign Dr. Lester needs to act quick? So she does, and puts her body under his care instead of Dr. McCoy's.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
As you can see, McCoy is pissed. Dr. Coleman has magically taken over medical authority on the Enterprise. McCoy won't allow it. Is he referring to Kirk's decision about Dr. Lester, or that Nurse Chapel isn't a blonde anymore? For the next scene, the director told Sandra Smith to put on her best William Shatner face. How did she do? Lester and Coleman both suggest a sedative. Nurse Chapel says, why? But then Kirk and McCoy say do it too. What's going on here? McCoy stomps off because he wants nothing to do with this nonsense. Coleman's like, good, he's gone. Kirk and Lester's body is worried about losing command of the Enterprise. And Lester and Kirk's body says, that's a bad dream that I always had too. And now she makes her own captain's log in her head, just like Kirk used to do after each commercial break, and claims she has studied everything there is to know about being a starship captain. What a pompous ass. Well, now that I think of it, she is a perfect replacement for Kirk in that way, isn't she? The next point is lost for a single set of doors on the turbo list. Warp 2 is really slow, isn't it? -1 point because Chekhov just disappeared. Oh look, he's back. Chekhov and Sulu always look different from behind, don't they? Let's see how many eyes we get in the last Star Trek episode. That's 1. And within 5 minutes on the bridge, there is a problem. Lester wants to drop her body off at Benicia Colony, and Spock says Starbase 2 is much more convenient. We are up to 2 eyes now. Spock tries again, since he knows Starbase 2 has the facilities to find out exactly what happened, which is the last thing Lester wants. And Spock tries a 3rd time. Spock now brings up a meeting with another ship Lester didn't even know about. She should have read the morning report before going to the bridge like a qualified starship captain always does. But instead she says, that's your job, Spock. And Spock says, no, that's your job, not mine. And Angela is thinking, damn, they're arguing like girls today. There's going to be a good cat fight soon. Of course, if they were traveling at Warp 6 all this time instead of Warp 2, they would get to all those places 27 times faster, and none of their bickering would have been an issue. And this is the 2nd eye.
Number 3.
Dr. McCoy is concerned that Dr. Coleman has a record of being a horrible doctor, but isn't wondering why Kirk is filing his nails for the first time in 30 years. McCoy stands by his record. Lester asks, why are you being so defensive? And he says, that's not why I'm here. I plan on sneaking off with that little statue on the shelf right after we wrap. I think I can make a killing off it later on eBay. -1 point for Janice Lester calling McCoy Bones. Janice is a woman's name. Lester is a man's name. Did Trek just create a transgendered character's name, or is this just a coincidence? Lester says promotions are politically maneuvered. Isn't she doing the same thing? McCoy is convinced something happened on the planet and wants Kirk to have an exam. Kirk says, why? What do you base that on? But why was the left fielder?
The left fielder's name. Why?
McCoy states his concerns and what his doctoral obligations are. Kirk just stares at him like he's got a big stick up his ass. Captain Kirk wakes up to discover his years of womanizing has come back to haunt him.
Oh man, am I a woman?
Kirk is now thinking, how did this happen? And most important of all, will I have to deal with her monthly visits now? That's going to be gross. Not only is Dr. McCoy not in charge, Kirk must be flipping out now knowing one of his body parts is missing. Kirk will have a tough time trying to sell that he isn't Dr. Lester, especially with Coleman saying all this crap. Now Nurse Chapel says she's not Janice Lester either. He's really laying it on thick to the point when he says Janice needs to be sedated, it is Kirk that offers to prepare the sedative. Kirk creates a captain's log in his or her head, and then he comes up with an idea and says, Nurse Chapel, I have this great idea. Since we just got canceled, let's boost those ratings through the roof with some girl-on-girl action, and then we will definitely get that fourth season we've always dreamed about. Yes! Then Nurse Chapel says, You know, my husband is a creator. There is no way he would sit there and watch. Well, he actually is a bit of a dirty old misogynistic man. He probably would like to sit there and watch. How about this? We get Spock to join us for a pond threesome far. Then Kirk's like, well, that sounds a little weird, so we better do this now before the next scene when Spock discovers who I really am and what he just did. But it turns out it was Dr. Coleman who said no to the threesome. Aww. So Kirk suggests meeting McCoy and learning the real secret of why he's called Bones.
He had the hands of a surgeon.
They start talking dirty again. You'll feel better if you have a little. Could I finish it slowly, Nurse Chapel? Oh, they're talking about the sedative, aren't they? Rats. Getting back to the actual storyline, the next point is lost, since Kirk didn't say something only Nurse Chapel would know so she would know it was him, and just sweet-talked her instead. And do you really think that strap will hold anyone in? Dr. McCoy and Spock argue about Kirk's mental state, during which time I have to take another point, since McCoy's tunic changes back and forth. McCoy now thinks he's the third baseman.
I don't know, he's third base.
Spock says his illness appears to be mental.
Very astute.
McCoy thinks it's an illness. Spock suggests getting Starfleet's Surgeon General involved, but that could take weeks for a response. And seriously, just unbuckle it. This is called assault, so -1 point for Spock not taking command right then and there, and -1 more point for security showing up so soon. Janice Lester as Kirk performs the Picard maneuver. And -1 more point, you seriously do not need 2 armed guards for Janice Lester. And now Janice Lester gets her dream to be the first woman to perform topless on 60s TV. And she shows her belly button. McCoy must be on to her because he checked her glands. And Lester says, Good, I hope you are as pleased about it as I am. Did they do something we don't know about that was in the deleted scenes? McCoy now says, Don't get dressed yet. He isn't done with Lester yet. He wants to do the Robiani gerbil optic on it now. Now Lester thinks the film crew is on to her because in this scene, they don't show her boobs. -1 point here since Kirk talks about life energy transfer and Spock says it has never been done before, even though they did this last year with Sargon and he was one of them. Another first, Janice Lester gets to be the first female to sunbathe topless on national 60s TV, and no one complained. Spock uses the Vulcan mind meld to find the truth. Galloway says they are mad, and Spock reminds him that he was killed last year on the Omega Glory and came back to life just to be on the last show of Star Trek, then pinches him. So who made this call? -1 point, since the escape attempt hasn't happened yet. There goes another one. -1 more point for a single set of doors on the turbo lift. Look at the numbers on the door. This room is right across from the Astro-Medical Isolation Ward. There lies the last red shirt to hit the ground. But he wasn't killed, he was only stunned by Spock. Look closely. While Lester accuses them of mutiny, she performs the Picard maneuver a second time. Maybe her female brain is trying to fill out that shirt. So far, about a day has passed. And -1 point for Janice Lester's captain's log, making a public record that she got away with it. Scotty says the mind meld's not enough evidence, while Sulu and Chekhov are thinking, who's running the ship right now? We're all down here. We have 3 armed guards and the third eye. Of course, 1 point is lost here. Since the dispute concerns Kirk, he should not be one of the judges. At least Janice Lester is allowed to wear decent clothes in the trial, although this dress reminds me of a Neapolitan ice cream cone. William Shatner overacts one last time. Like, what are they going to do, cancel the show? See, if a research team had gone to the surface with them and gathered information on that machine, they could have used it as evidence here, but they didn't. And Lester's response to Kirk's statement is, oh well. She's like, hey, those guys over there look real cute, and they're like, hey, Which one of us is she looking at? The next point is lost for not just quizzing Lester and Kirk on things that only Kirk would know. That would solve the problem right there. Kirk says Janet Lester is power hungry and wants to kill him, and that he left her because she hated her own womanhood. Does that mean she identified as a man, or just hated being a woman, or just loves playing the victim? Or she could have other problems we never find out about. Maybe she wasn't cut out for Starfleet, but she still had a successful career as an archaeologist. So Kirk left her because she hated being a woman? That could mean a lot of things, but to Kirk the womanizer, it probably just meant the sex was bad. Mr. Spock accuses Janice Lester of appropriating a human body. It looks like Spock's goal is to push her until she snaps. McCoy and Scotty are placing bets on how long this is going to last. I don't know why he called her Lisa. In the previous episodes, her name was Angela. That pissed Angela off so much, she also says, since you can't get my name right, you don't belong on the Enterprise, and I will also do everything in my power against you. Sulu and Chekhov are like, damn, she's tough. Janice Lester is practicing a Kirk pucker. Then she puts on her angry face and says, it is mutiny. Scotty's thinking, I always knew he was a jerk, but this is nuts. While McCoy is thinking, we need to hurry this up. I got a job interview after we wrap today. And Kirk is thinking, who the heck is flying the ship? And Sulu and Chekhov are thinking, what do you mean no cross discussion? That's our job at the helm. Scotty calls for an immediate vote, but Janice Lester says, let's go to recess first, and then we'll vote. While McCoy contemplates his job interview as the new Musketeer, Scotty admits he has seen the captain. McCoy closes his eyes to visualize that. Scotty says if the vote goes bad, they're gonna have to mutiny. Yes! Scotty says the fifth eye, and you know what that means.
Ay, 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 ay.
Minus one more point for hidden recording devices in the hallways that never existed until this episode. And she's like, I wanted the fifth eye. Are they talking about mutiny too? And there is eye number 7, which is actually Scotty's eye again. So the vote gets thrown out the window and Lester sentences them to death. Here is where the next point is lost, since they all say the only death penalty is General Order 4, and no one on the ship has violated that one. Did they actually forget the time they all went to Talos 4 together? Lester says she is responsible for this whole mess and orders their execution. Then another female Starship Commander order executions by the sackful. I would say this is proof women are unfit for Space Command, but that would be sexist. The real reason is this is all done for ratings. The next point is lost since this outburst is enough proof to McCoy and Scotty and Spock that Kirk is unstable and he could be relieved of command. Instead, they all just go to the brig together. Sulu and Chekhov engage in cross-discussion they were just banned from doing. Sulu says, I'll fight them any way I can. I asked Gene Roddenberry for years to have a gay community show, and he ends the entire series with a transgender episode, and the gay community outnumbers the trans community by 100 to 1. This is an outrage. So it's going to be a public execution. Janice Lester doesn't know ship operations the way she claims to, does she? They have arrived at Benicia Colony. Lester orders them to plot an orbit, then Sulu and Chekhov drop their hands in an act of civil disobedience like the Canadian truckers did. And here is William Shatner's final overacting scene of this series. Of course, his character is really Janice Lester, having her consciousness ripped out of his head and replaced with Kirk's, then ripped out again and replaced with Janice Lester's mind. So these reactions might be accurate. And minus 1 point for a single set of doors on a turbolift. Janice Lester cries to Dr. Coleman about the switch, and the only solution is to kill Janice Lester's body with Kirk's mind in it. But Dr. Coleman says he won't kill her. So Lester comes up with a prize. She says, hey, if you do this, I got a new body part we can try out and really take Kirk's body where no man has gone before. After all, I'm still Janice Lester, so...
Technically, it's not cheating.
And Coleman says, okay. He's gonna give her a shot of something. Lieutenant Lisa is on the bridge thinking, this narrator is getting a little carried away. No wonder her isn't here. She wanted nothing to do with this nonsense. William Shatner's thinking, this is the last time I'll ever get to walk down this hallway. Aww. It was really a bad idea to put them all in the same cell to begin with. He says if there is any resistance, you will be sedated, but the plan is to sedate her anyway. And good news, this final fight returns Kirk's mind back into his own body. Janice Lester is never going to be the captain. She could just play Star Trek video games as Captain like the rest of us do, but she won't do it. Of course, this may be the end of the episode, but Dr. Coleman needs to get her to an asylum fast before they realize she killed her entire research staff. And the last point is lost for a single set of turbolift doors as they fly off into space. But weren't they supposed to stop by the Benicia colony that they just flew by? So, who were the residents of Camus 2? Roger Holloway played Lieutenant Limney in 34 episodes and William Shatner's stand-in for 50 episodes. Bill Blackburn was Lieutenant Hadley for 67 episodes and DeForest Kelly's stand-in for 75. David Ross returned from the grave to play Lieutenant Galloway for the 9th and final time. Barbara Baldwin played Angela in Balance of Terror and Shore Leave and has 30 screen credits but spent most of her film career in the casting department, most notably for Dynasty. Harry Landers was Dr. Coleman with an impressive 90 screen credits and lived to be 96. His acting credits include Phantom from Space, The Ten Commandments, and Ben Casey. Right before he starred on Star Trek, he had surgery to remove a tumor from his right lung and was still recovering when he was playing this part. And Sandra Smith got to play Janice Lester and the only female Captain Kirk. You can also see her on The Big Valley, Wild Wild West, and The Flying Nun. So what happened during the 3rd season? Spock's brain stolen by go-go dancers. Spock seduces a Romulan woman to steal a cloaking device. Kirk forgets who he is, falls in love, and is mistaken for a god. Children dance over the corpses of their parents. An intelligent being in a box saves the ship. A shootout at the OK Corral. An alien survives off continuous sword fights. McCoy gets the girl. Enterprise gets caught in a web. Plato's stepchildren, most vicious people around. Some fast-moving people take over the ship. They meet an empathic race with a minimalist set. A Trek version of the Taming of the Shrew. The crew gets trapped by asylum inmates. A planet is destroyed by its own racism. An overpopulated planet wants a fatal virus. A defense outpost is also taken out by disease. Space entities try to take over humans. While searching for a botanical vaccine, the crew meets an ancient man who created a sentient android. Hippies who carry a superbug search for Eden. A floating city of artists live at the expense of the people on the surface, who have a vaccine for a plague. A planet of living rocks wants to watch the Hunger Games. The people of a dying planet escape destruction by going back in time. And Kirk gets his body stolen by a pissed-off ex-girlfriend. And remember, it all started with just a boy and a girl exploring. That's what Star Trek has always been about. And the shows not to be missed for Season 3, Last Battlefield, This Side of Paradise, and Plato's Stepchildren, while you can pass up Spock's Brain, The Mark of Gideon, and Requiem for Methuselah. Turnabout Intruder, which may or may not be considered a transgender episode, but has definitely broken the record for the longest video I have made so far, gets a score of 78%. That's it for now. Thanks for viewing. Be sure to check out my other videos and playlists, and please click that like button, the share button, and that subscribe button, and I will see you next time with the animated series.